we were just talking about the expansion project before we decided to take the conversation here to your lovely uh, pitch side of business side of campus. Let me put it that way, with all these pitches. I mean, this is look. I can tell you, this pitch it has better playing quality than the ones we play our national team football. And I'm not even capping. This is the truth because I've been to Baba Yara multiple times. I've been to the Accra Sports Stadium multiple times. We don't even have this quality pitch. I mean, this is what? This is one of how many?
8.
8 pitches?
Yeah.
Are they all full size or?
3 full size, 1 9-a-side, 4 7-a-side.
Wow. And I noticed that to get from where the classrooms are to here, which is where the residence is as well.
For the boys, the girls stay over there.
It's quite a walk. How big is this whole land altogether when you got it? Because it seems like it's a whole campus.
About 60 acres.
60 acres?
Yeah. So, and we have a lot more development to do. So now we're focusing on the next stage of development for the campus here. We have a lot of ideas.
Yeah. I mean, and building 8 pitches here, that must have been a lot of work, I believe.
Yeah, that was the first time the Mansour Group supported us because they own Mantrack, which is the Caterpillar dealership here. So that's as far back as 2013 that they stepped in. And
so you've been partnering with Mansour for a long time?
That was like a one-off
thing
where actually the guy who's the new group CEO, Dan Dickinson, he's on the global board of Caterpillar.
Right.
But he's been with us for a long time.
Yes.
So when we wanted to build the pitches, then he called through Caterpillar and he got to Ludwig Mansour.
Okay.
So I didn't actually meet, but we had a couple of phone calls and he was like, look, I was trying to build one more pitch.
Okay.
And he said, okay, how long do you need the machines for? So I just tried my luck. I said, 6 months. He said, no problem.
Wow.
So when they send the machines, I told them, you build pitches until until the 6 months is up.
As long as you can.
Yes. So I was planning to have 1 more, 3, and then we ended up with 8.
Wow.
And then, you know, like each year I'll send him a happy Christmas note or appreciation. He'll always reply. And then later on, so there was a contact there, but it wasn't like a formal partnership.
Yeah.
And then later on, the same Dan Dickinson said, oh, the rumor is that the Mansours want to buy a Premier League club. Why don't we talk to them about what we're doing for the reasons I said before about stability and growth. So Ludwig came here and he got it immediately. And then he said, look, no matter what happens, I'll build a Right to Dream in Egypt.
Wow.
And then if you guys can persuade me that there's a bigger business model, then maybe we'll go for the whole thing. So we spent a year talking about the bigger idea while we were planning Egypt. And then at the end of the year, his father came in at the end. And I think that was more about character assessment and other things than the business model. And they said, okay, this is going to be our football project, global football project.
That's amazing. At the moment, how many players do you have in this, both boys and girls, in this Right to Dream?
About 120 here.
About 120. And do you know what the ratio is?
About 20 girls. So I really want to work on expanding the girls' side, yeah.
These are the very pictures where Mohamed Kudus, Kamaldeen Sulemana, David Akam, Thomas Japon, listen, I'm not even copying when I say you've literally built a national team for Ghana. Because at any given time, right now, it's impossible to have a Black Stars gathering without Right to Dream graduates. And yes, these are not just peripheral players. These are players that are actually making huge impact. Some of the best there is. Not just that, even on the continent, and I think you're probably on your way to producing a first African football of the year. These pitches, for me, it's one thing that gives me a great idea about how serious you are about this academy. Because listen, even with our own national team, we can't even get quality pitches to play on. But let's talk about some of the talents that have come through here briefly, and then I would just say, and then we move on to the San Diego project and wrap it up. If you look at all the talent that has passed through here, all the years that you've had this academy, who would you say is probably the most talented on a football pitch?
The best player I ever saw here was Kelvin Ofori.
What happened to him?
He signed in Germany. Now he's playing in Slovakia. But he was
What made him so special?
he was,
Skillful?
yeah. He was. I don't like it when people call me telling me that they have a Messi type player because but he was a left-footed in that style. But it changes, different stages, different players develop, and then what matters is when you're fully grown, like how it is. But if you talk about academy football, that's the best player. Even at Man U, I never saw a player as good as Kelvin Ofori. And then Kamal, like leading up to when he left, and then his start in FCN is unbelievable. He still will be unbelievable. Like when it settles down, like that's a world-class player. And then Kudus didn't get in on the scouting system. He came to play against us.
That's how he got in.
Yeah.
Tell me the story.
No, he came with Strong Tower to play against us, and he just finished everybody.
Wow.
So it's like, okay. And I think he'd been in the system, but he hadn't made it all the way. I can't remember the detail. Yeah. But I remember standing right where your camera is, and he was playing here.
On this very pitch?
This pitch, when he was young, and I was like, ooh. And then he was invited in. And then in the early years...
Do you have a lot of those kids?
No.
So that's a special case.
It's not often, yeah. And then in the early years, Yao Yaboa was unbelievable player. And he can play anywhere. He's like Kojo Asamoah. He can play anywhere.
Midfield. 10.
Yeah. So I'm very happy for him. He's very happy with his life. And he's doing great. He scored the winning goal in the MLS Cup final. Yeah. But I still think there's more to come from him. I think he'll become more dominant in the MLS. And I hope to see him, he does play left back in America, and so I think the left back position is a little bit competitive in the Black Stars as well.
Yeah.
So
that's a fair point that you make. Also about Kamaldeen Sulemana, because I thought, quite frankly, that he was. I mean, at FC Nordsjælland, he was unplayable. Like, he was explosive. That has sort of taken a little bit of... What do you think has happened there? I don't think that his development has accelerated at the same rate that he was going when he was at FC Nordsjælland.
No, I think, it's the old expression, form is temporary, class is permanent.
True.
And for Kamal, like, if you watch Jeremy Doku, if you watch Vinicius Junior in training, their potential, you compare it to Kamal, you're talking about a player in the same ballpark. Right. Obviously, in certain phases of their development, they pushed a little bit, but with modern day, most footballers will still be playing when they're 36, 37. So he's right at the start of the journey still, and he has everything that it takes. So even I watched the game against Central African Republic. If you look at positioning, timing of runs, everything, he was the one who was supposed to score. So of course everybody will focus on the actual finishing, but the real thing is right time, right position, all that type of stuff. He's a world-class player.
Yeah. And Kudus was the one. Kamaldeen, we didn't see him in the youth teams. Kudus was the one we saw a lot in the youth teams, under 17, under 20. He and Sadiq Ibrahim. Kudus was quite chubby at some point, it looked like. And
that's your words, not my words.
It's my word. And to be fair, in that under 17, there were a lot of people that thought that he wasn't quite pulling his weight. And I remember, I don't know if it's an interview that you did or something. I see somewhere that you, the very first day, I think someone might have raised the same concern with you or something, and you told the person in the face that, look at this kid, he would go right to the very top. And that you did have some of those comments about him at some point, didn't you?
That he was chubby?
About Kudus not necessarily being maybe slightly big for his age?
Kudus has like size 13 feet, and he's not very tall. So he's
size 13?
Yeah. So he's like genetically he's a unique athlete.
Yeah.
And you have to be, this is where I think Right to Dream is doing a good job, that we've brought in best-in-class practice. We share it among our group so that we don't fall into stereotypical comments about players.
Yeah.
You have to take, especially at that top level, every athlete as an individual case. You have to be patient with the process. We can definitely be too fast in Ghana to write a player off. And then the other fact is that we develop our players to be successful in Europe. And then from that, they transition into the Black Stars.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the players playing in the junior national teams, they're developed in the Ghana system. So when they play African football, they know everything about African football. Whereas our guys are playing in Europe on a regular basis from a young age, which gives them the platform to establish themselves in the Premier League and other things. And then from there, obviously, they'll have a big impact for Ghana, but we kind of do things the other way around.
Yeah.
So like we wouldn't really listen to any analysis on how our players were doing in the youth national teams and take it too seriously. We obviously scout the games ourselves and then make our own mind, help the player with some reflections on that. But I think every parent in Ghana would want their kid to establish themselves in Europe first and then tackle the Black Stars, rather than focus on the youth national teams but not really know how to play in Europe. And generally the transition of Ghanaian players into Europe over the last few years has not been too strong, and that's because the style of play has differentiated so much now in Europe with Pep's kind of revolution that a lot of people are copying. It's very hard for a young African player, if he's not hearing the terminology and getting the coaching from, like, even from 10 years old.
Yeah.
If you're not getting that, and then you just step into Europe at 18 and you hear a coach talking about all of those terminologies, imagine the kind of pressure to try and adapt to all of that. If you speak to Michael, Essien and Derek and others, when they arrived in Europe, it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
It was much more like simple basics,
Yeah.
so you could adapt. But now you come in and you'll be talking about all phases of the game, and you're counter-pressing, and if a centre-back receives the ball on his weaker foot, then we're going to press with this direction. If he receives it on the other.
Information.
And so as a young midfielder, let's say you play 8 and then early on, and then the coach goes back and says, I don't think this guy can learn, which is an equally ignorant comment on the European side. But that's how it goes. So we just want to prepare our kids for success.
I mean, Kudus is already really good, a very special talent. But from where you sit, just how far do you think he can go? He seemed to have early troubles at Ajax. I'm not exactly sure what was going on there. I thought he should have been playing the whole time. I don't know what the issue was with Erik ten Hag. He's shown at West Ham that he's an absolutely fantastic player. When you look at his journey, the trajectory he's going, how soon or how much longer before we see him being maybe at Real Madrid or one of those big clubs?
Well, the one thing about Kudus is he knows what's best for himself.
Yeah.
He's managed his career very successfully, and so he knows.
You don't manage these kids, right?
No. They have their own agents. Sometimes they do it themselves, so he'll make good decisions. And it's not for me to comment the right time for him to step and everything else. But yeah, you mentioned Real Madrid. For me, I think the right side of the Real Madrid team, if you have Kylian at 9, Vinny on the left, that kind of different, because he's not like a raw pace guy like those guys. He's a different style. I think he can play for any team in the world.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's talk about San Diego FC. And even before we talk about that, I want to pick your opinion on this. Now, apart from the fact that you're developing a lot of players that are going on and doing well in Europe and coming back, also helping our national team, you're also doing the same thing for coaches as well. I mean, Ghanaian coaches. And from the top of my head, you had Lai Kingston, you had Didi Dramani, you had Otto Addo, who is now the Black Stars coach. You now have Michael Essien, and Derek Boateng is working for you as a scout. CK as well has worked with Right to Dream in the past. He also coached the national team. I mean, this is wonderful. At what point did you decide that, let me give a lot of these Ghanaian ex-players the opportunity to coach?
They decided to coach, and they are good coaches.
Well, you gave them the opportunity.
Yeah, but it's natural. They're good coaches.
True.
And
makes it easier.
we talked about it with Henrik, the Brazilian, like his market value. It's the same thing in relation to coaches. Why are Brazilian and Argentinian coaches coming to Europe and making it, but African coaches are not? So it's just simple. They're good coaches. End of story.
Yeah.
How other people choose to see the world is not our problem.
Do you? Otto is now the Black Stars head coach. Do you? He worked at FC Barcelona for a year.
Longer.
Longer.
Yeah.
Longer than a year.
Yeah.
Did you?
And I offered him the head coach job in FCN as well.
At what point?
Later on.
Before he left FCN.
No,
Or
when he
while
went
you
back
were
to
at
Dortmund.
Dortmund?
Yeah.
Before the World Cup.
Yeah.
And he said no to that.
Yeah.
Too? Wow. They are. Otto he's a unique figure. He's very obsessed with football. Do you remember how you got connected to him to come to FCN?
The first time I saw Otto play was African Cup of Nations 2002 in Ghana?
2000.
2000.
2000 in Ghana.
And, I knew all the Ghanaian players. And so he was one of the first foreigners, because he's quite German. I was like, where's this guy coming from? I think he had a Rasta, and we didn't know him in the same way. So I remember him that far back. And then I tracked all of the, let's say, Ghanaian heritage guys as well, monitored their careers. George Boateng is a good example. Eric Addo. Even in the Danish media, we have Francis Dicko. So I track all of those Ghanaian heritage and monitor their careers, as well as all the local coaches. So Otto was always like an interesting case. And then when I was thinking about FCN, I said, who will understand the European mindset and the Ghanaian mindset? And, Denmark, border to Germany, they're different, but some similarities. So he was just an obvious candidate. So it was like I didn't know him, but it was a headhunting approach to say who's the perfect profile
at this point.
And so I just called his agent, and then we met, we talked about strategy, and then we did the deal.
That's amazing, because Otto is one guy. He's getting the job, especially after the way the first stint went. When he didn't stay on as a permanent coach, the conversation was always like, why is it? Now you're telling me that he even turned down an FCN job, which makes me believe what he said even more, that he just wasn't ready at the time to leave Dortmund. But now he's come back, he's doing a really decent job. You've also got Michael Essien, still with the coaching staff at FCN now. I saw his title, individual player coach. What does that mean?
Well, the way that we do things at FCN is that we balance the individual needs of the player versus the needs of the team.
Okay.
So, of course, our players love to be with us, but they're thinking about other things as well.
Yeah.
So if they see that our only focus is how to win as FCN, which is how most coaches and most clubs think, and maybe if we think you can help us at right back, we'll play you there, even if it won't help your career.
Okay.
We see it another way, where we have to really focus on where do you want to get to, how can we help you get there, and then at the same time, how can you help the club to progress. So that's Michael's job, is to look at the development of the individual player and
align their goals to the team's goals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're not aligned.
Yes.
So help to make the decision about, we had a player, Mohamed Diomande, who's at Rangers now, and for some time we needed him to play left back.
Is it a kid we wanted to play for Ghana?
Yeah, Ghana wanted him. But in that situation, we needed him to play left back. Okay. He wants to play either 8 or 10. So how do you balance those two things? Because it's natural for a kid, if he thinks he's an 8 and he's desperate to make it, and he's like, okay, they're playing me at left back, nobody's going to see me.
Yeah.
When Diomande left, I asked him, who's the single biggest influence in your career? He said, Michael.
Wow.
So how to manage all of those periods. And, sometimes Michael played right back for Chelsea, a lot of things. So those experiences, he's uniquely positioned.
Yeah. And he's a very interesting character. Michael doesn't like involving himself with, he's a very quiet guy. But when it comes to, I saw an interview on the Right to Dream, I think YouTube channel, where each of the kids was getting a turn to interview Michael,
Yeah.
and he looked like a completely different person. Talking to the kids than when Michael meets anybody else outside, and they
He doesn't like you media guys. That's
he
what
doesn't. He doesn't.
That's what you're
I
trying
would
to say.
that. He doesn't like Ghanaian media at all. I was at the World Cup in Doha, in Qatar. I watched the Argentina and Croatia semi-final with Michael. We had a lovely conversation throughout the game. After that, I asked Michael for an interview. He says, "My friend, I'm not going to do it." Tom, the future of Right to Dream without you now.
Did you say without me?
Did I say without you?
Yeah.
Without you as CEO.
Yeah.
It's now in the hands of your very good friend Dickinson. But more importantly, Right to Dream is growing bigger. Ghana, FCN, so Denmark, Egypt, now you're expanding to America as well. You're taking the same principles there. But beyond everything else, you're building this one in a very unique San Diego. It's got, I read somewhere, the part ownership with the Native American people. I mean, tell me all about that, that project. It looks like a huge project because it doesn't appear to me, and I've read on this, that any other MLS clubs has any module close to what you guys are building.
Yeah, it's true. You know, it was the Mansour's vision. You know, Ludwig came up with this phrase early on. He said, "Americans just get it. Like who we are, Americans just get it." The student-athlete model, and the idea that everybody has the right to dream.
Yeah.
You know, aligned with the original essence of the American dream. No matter where you come from, you can make it to the top. So that was his vision, because very early on, the idea was, okay, let's buy a team in England. And then once he got into the business, he's like, it's going to work better in America. So I spent 2.5 years going everywhere in America, looking at so many projects. We had a project in Baltimore that we nearly got close to, but eventually the opportunity was in San Diego for an MLS franchise, and then with the Sequan tribe and their chairman Cody, who's a visionary, and the fact that they have this amazing reservation land where we can, you know, it's their land, so we can build what we want there. He fell in love with the Right to Dream vision actually after he met Usaini Buda and one Ghanaian graduate called Adelaide Ama, who's one of our best graduates.
Oh, okay.
And when he met them, he said, okay, I want to have a Right to Dream
Wow.
in San Diego on my land. So, you know, everything in America is big money, so it's a huge investment, and the school there and the residential there is going to be something unique. And I'm sure that we'll see Ghanaian heritage kids getting into Right to Dream there, and then Ghana has to move quickly and get some of these guys coming back to play for Black Stars as well. You know?
Before they even have to think about nationality switches. You've had, I mean, this whole US project, the more I think about it, the more I realize it's such a natural fit for the Right to Dream philosophy, because you probably have majority of your kids in America, even for those that have gone to university, that have graduated, that get the Right to Dream mentality, the Right to Dream idea. And I'm not even going to be surprised if you end up having a lot of ex-Right to Dream graduates from university and corporate world all coming back to help in that case. I know beyond the football field, beyond scouting, coaching, what Michael Essien and co are doing, you also have a lot of these ex-graduates of Right to Dream who are doing a lot more things in the football management aspect of things. David Akam being one of them as well. I spoke to him the last, and he said he was intending here under DD. What is that going to be like for people in that space of the management? Are there others apart from David Akam?
Yeah, and I think you've just articulated the whole vision. So, you know, I don't need to basically repeat what
sorry.
you. No, that's it. And so, it's an accurate description of the vision. And you know, for us now, as our players retire, but also as our guys who graduate from university and don't play pro, They know the model better than anybody. They know the model better than me.
Yeah.
So I always tell people that if you say that you understand Right to Dream, but you have not grown up in an environment where you feel like your dreams can't be reached, then you don't understand Right to Dream.
Right.
And I'm a privileged guy. You know, my dad did well, so I grew up in England. When you grow up in that kind of situation, if you want something, of course he can't just give me anything. It's not like he's a multi-millionaire or something.
Yeah.
But in England, if you want something, it's there for you and you can see the pathway. So unless you've been in that situation where you say that I know I've got something in me and for certain reasons I just can't get there, then you can never fully understand Right to Dream.
Yeah.
The psychological journey that and the pressures of that. So that's also another good reason for me not to stay in forever.
Yeah.
Because when I talk to some of the graduates and some of the kids, I realize they know more about this than me. So for them to come in, because you will look at certain behaviors, if you've grown up in a comfortable environment, you will interpret them in a way due to all the influences that you have in UK culture and everything, you won't understand. And then you might misinterpret, and then you might be involved in the wrong decision for somebody's future. So you need people who've lived it and gone to bed thinking, I've got something and I'm not going to get it out. So that's the future of the leadership of Right to Dream as well.
Absolutely. It's fantastic. Brilliant. San Diego FC will play in the MLS in 2025. Are you building a new stadium, or there's an existing stadium, or where are you going to be playing your home matches?
There's an existing stadium, Snapdragon. It's a new stadium,
Okay.
but it was built by the university.
Okay.
So we're a tenant there, 35,000.
Okay.
We've just signed our marquee player,
Okay.
who's Herving Lozano.
Okay. Herving Lozano,
yeah.
Mexican international,
Yeah.
formerly of PSV Eindhoven.
Yeah, and he was in Napoli as well.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we've done there is we've brought a player who he represents Right to Dream's values. We have a video about one of our players, Francis Atuahini, and I showed it to Herving,
Okay.
and he stopped the video halfway through and he said, "That's my life."
Wow.
And then his wife looked at him and said, they call him Chucky. They're like, "Chucky, you have to sign for this project."
Wow.
And the guy has won Serie A, and then he won the Eredivisie the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And now he's coming in the prime of his career because of Right to Dream, because he got that idea that I can use it to create opportunity for the next generation. So he's a fantastic, inspiring guy. And also what we're showing with our club is that we're not bringing retirement players. He's in the prime of his career.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You can just graduate a lot of the young players.
Yeah, but this guy's still in his 20s, serial winner, connected to the Right to Dream vision. That's the type of club that we want to build.
And obviously it's all connected, right? So you would have kids coming from Egypt going to FCN, kids from FCN going to San Diego, kids from Accra or Right to Dream Ghana going to either San Diego or going to... That is a very elaborate system, and I have to say, like you've built an empire, if I'm not exaggerating, already. But surely you have a lot more bigger visions for this whole Right to Dream thing. Where do you see this project going maybe in the next 10, 20 years?
My email and my LinkedIn is full of people saying we desperately need Right to Dream in our country.
Oh, yes.
You know, especially in Africa, but in a lot of places that would surprise you as well. And even, you know it, we've gone to America now, you might think, oh, do the kids there really need it? They desperately need it.
Yeah. Mostly because in America, parents have to pay to go to soccer practices. You give them full scholarships.
Yeah, but, another thing is, when I was looking at the Baltimore project, if I had to start from zero, there's nowhere in Ghana, or let's say, if I had to start from zero in Baltimore, I would rather anywhere in Ghana than there for my kids. So there's also communities in what we call the developed world where you will never want to bring your kid up, and you will much rather be in Oda Kradi, which has its challenges, but it's a fantastic place. So the idea of Right to Dream is relevant in the so-called most developed countries in the world as much as what people call the developing world. So it's relevant for a lot of places, and that's that now sits with the Mansour family and Dan, and then I'm supporting that with other things. But I'm also, I said when I stepped down that we have, Right to Dream has some focus in Africa, but I would like to have more focus in Africa. And one thing I know is that every time we go to the side of a pitch in Ghana to run a trial, and maybe only one kid is going to get in, those other 2,000 kids, they all have unique talents and abilities, maybe not in football, but I'd like to think more and maybe try to get into the space of unlocking every child's unique potential and seeing in other things whether I can build pathways, because I've done football for a long time and I'll stay in football, but I want to sort of broaden my interests, and then this is my home, so I want to be back here more often and get involved with more things in Ghana.
Yeah, what most people don't know is that your kids actually love Ghana more than anywhere else, and they work here at Right to Dream. We met one of them.
One works, the other one plays. So the first one, Jake, he's the middle one, but he grew up here, and when we were 9, we moved to Denmark. And after 6 months, he was like, "No, Dad, I want to go home."
He wants to go back to Ghana. He wants to go back home.
And I told him, "No, I bought a club. I can't just go back." He's like, "Then I'll go on my own." At 9.
Wow.
So I told him, "Well, for me, I'm okay, but your mum has to agree." So he bothered her until he was 12. When he was 12, he's like, "What do you want for your birthday?" He said, "I just want to go to Ghana." Then she said, "Okay, go."
Amazing.
So he came back by himself. And
At 12?
Yeah.
Arrived at the airport, took his car. He's going to Old Accra.
And he's been here since.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, what did you say about home, right? Ghana is, if you come once, you visit again. Ultimately, you have bigger dreams for Right to Dream, like you said. You want to open up in so many other different countries. What about FC Nordsjælland as well? Do you see yourself maybe trying to, I'm not going to say maybe change your model, but maybe be a bit more ambitious, maybe trying to play Champions League football? I don't know if that's your focus now, but maybe is that a point that you see yourself going to with FCN, winning the Danish League, going to play Champions League, becoming a global?
I think it's very important that we stay true to our brand promise, which is to give our young players that opportunity. But I honestly believe that you can do both things.
Okay.
You can play with a young team and you can win. Last year we finished 2nd. This year we finished 4th. Yeah. There's one game at the end of the season, the goalkeeper makes a fingertip save 2 centimeters. If it goes in, I think we would have won the league.
Wow.
So it's within centimeters that we're that close. This season we played Fenerbahce in Europe and beat them 6-1. Yeah. So that's, for me, huge ambition already being shown, but doing it within our model. And I think a lot of people think, okay, to be more ambitious, then you need to get bigger stars and all that type of stuff. Whereas I think we can just get better at what we do. And by getting better at our model, then naturally the success will come.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, listen, I think that in wrapping this up, I would just say that there is a lot of gratitude that you've shown in this interview about a lot of the people and the factors that have been influential in getting you to this point. You've given credit to lots of people, from Atuke Few to Ado to
George
lots
Weah.
of people, and it just reminds me about, the very values that you try to instill in the players. Never forget where you're coming from. And that's why I'm not surprised a lot of the Right to Dream graduates are always very big champions of their communities. And I think that for me is one of the big takeaways. It's not just about the football and making big money when you succeed as a footballer. It's also about the impact you have in your community and giving back and coming back and giving back. It's essential. Having said that, when you look back at the last 25 years, if you have to sum it up in one sentence or maybe one word, it's a quarter of a century. That is surely a landmark period to celebrate, to reflect. During that period, you've stepped down now as CEO, like you said, to spend more time with your family and all of that. But if you had to put one word, one sentence to it in the last 25 years, what would it be?
I'm grateful.
Grateful. Grateful.
It's and actually, I'm most grateful for the hardest times. I'm most grateful to the ones who tried to bring this project down. It teaches you so much about humanity. It teaches you so much about the way things work, about loyalty. You see people willing to stick up for you, to go to the grave with you. So you build relationships. Like when you push something like this, you build relationships and you experience things that if you decide not to try and go in, you never experience it. You know, but once you go in, same thing that you're doing. Once you go in, then you can see some ugly sides, but you see some beautiful sides. And then later, even the ugly stuff, you'll appreciate it more because it helps you when you do the next things to make it more successful as well.
Was there ever a point where you wanted to give up?
Yeah.
What
Two
was it?
or three.
2 or 3 times?
Yeah.
What was the very first one? I mean, the one that you remember distinctly. Let's put it that way.
When we finished building this,
Yeah.
somebody came with a land claim that is for them.
Oh God!
And I remember
I'm
going.
not even surprised.
I remember going home and telling my wife that if they take this thing off me, then we are going, because we had just finished building, and then in Denmark too, like the risk that we took to borrow that money and expose ourselves in that way, then there was a lot of at that time a lot of people trying to bring the project down, and at that time as well it was like. But as I said, now I'm so grateful that people did those things, because the land case teaches you so many things about how to do the next one. The other, you know, all these things that your toughest times are your best learnings.
I mean, I'm not even surprised about the land claim thing. This is typical Accra, right? Typical Ghana. Like you buy a piece of land, you register.
They wait for you to put the roof on and then they come.
They come and tell you that that's my land. Even if you have nothing to show, they just come and tell you that's my land. Okay, Tom.
But I have to thank the last one is our lawyer, Kazito.
Yeah.
He's been with us from day one. Any time that these issues came up, if you see the bills that he sends me, he's not even on his level, but he's just one Ghanaian who's put like everything behind this to protect it all the way through. So I was very lucky to meet him right at the start. One time they were trying to kick us out, and then I took him to a meeting, and the guy looked, he said, "Oh, then we can't do what we want to do." because of him. They said, if you put a small tree next to a big rock, you cannot chop the tree down. So we've had a few people like that, you know.
Of course. You know, their personalities intimidate. Sometimes they look at you, they think you're a pushover. But when you're not, walks into the room, and like, oh, okay, then he's not a small boy in that sense. Listen, Tom, very grateful that you dedicated 2 hours of your time to talk us through this Right to Dream project. It's been a phenomenal chat. I've learned a lot about Right to Dream. I've learned a lot about you. I've learned a lot about the vision of the club, and I'm sure that our viewers have learned a lot as well. So we're very, very grateful that you could do this. And if I'm not trying to brag, but this is like Tom's first big interview after he stepped down as CEO. So this is his exit interview.
If you say it's not an exit, it's
well, that's why I did this.
I can't leave Right to Dream.
No,
so you know.
I mean, that's why I did this. You know, but it's been grateful. It's been amazing. I'm grateful. Just going to say that this is a dream that you built. How did you come by the name, by the way? Right.
Do you know the original name?
What was it?
Tom Vernon Football Academy. After George Weah spoke to me, I was like, okay, I have to get rid of this name quickly. So we just put.
Not that's enough.
But some
Vernon Football Academy just doesn't have the
it's
same
horrible.
ring to it.
I'm hoping it will come back as a retro brand one day, but I don't think so. But some kids.
Did you actually register it?
I can't even remember.
Yeah, it's just
Maybe.
an idea in your head.
That's what it was called. Some communities in Ghana, the kids still say they want to play Tom.
Yeah.
And he's like, what's the meaning of Tom?
Right.
They say, no, Right to Dream. They say, we don't know Right to Dream, we know Tom. In some communities.
Wow.
So we still have more branding work to do on
You still do.
on Right to Dream.
Did you? I like your logo. It's been ringing in my head a lot, and I'm thinking, is that an Adinkra sign?
No.
It looks kind of.
But it does, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and then,
it does.
you know, so obviously now it's a global brand. But the origin of it with the black star and then the playful child and everything, it shows where we came from. Yeah.
But the way it's designed.
The shape of it, has that. So the branding agency actually is Costa Rican.
Okay.
And they've done all of our stuff. They rebranded FCN. They did the San Diego stuff as well. So we brought them down, and they spent a lot of time going around here because the old Right to Dream logo was very like Ghana-centric, but we wanted something like Nike or Adidas where in future a kid can come from anywhere in the world and Then if they're wearing that logo, you know, okay, that's a Right to Dream,
Yeah.
Right to Dream kid.
Okay. I mean, that's, yeah, fantastic. Okay, here's my
Okay.
last activity before you go. I'm just going to mention your name of any of your graduates. And then the thing is to finish a sentence for me, most likely to become a what if they were not a footballer?
Okay.
Or any other case. So, what are they most likely to become if they were not a footballer? So I go with the names. Let's start with Mohammed Kudus,
Lawyer,
Kamaldeen,
entrepreneur,
David Akam,
FA president,
Maxwell Wallacey,
who do I compare him to? Philanthropist,
Yaya Boy.
father.
Amazing. Thank you for that. I don't want to keep going. You have thousands of cases, but Tom,
Okay.
it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for hosting us. I hope you enjoyed the interview, Tom Vernon, for making time for us here on another Joy Sports special. The dream continues, and obviously, I don't need to remind you that you too have a right to dream. It's bye for now.